if you expect in a relationship to immediately, the second that you are, let's say, horny, wanting sex, you want to fuck, if you expect the other person to respond immediately to give you that sense of satisfaction, then now you've cut off the one thing that is creating that awesome spice.
No, but I mean, most importantly, you mentioned that some of the things that you learned had a positive impact. But I'm sure everyone else would love to know. I mean, of course, in respect of everything.
I would say that as far as, let's say, habits, things that I do that help me get in touch with this energy, that help me develop synchronicity with my partner, that help me explore my body.
I think the mindset for anything. Because me, I started to do yoga.
Everything in its right place, right? It seems like everything unfolded for you in a very timely manner, and I just want you to know that from a firsthand experience, your content, and the material that you guys are producing has been transformative for me, and in my perceptions, in my approach. And the next thing that I want to say, and maybe we can dissect this together, have a conversation about it, is I believe that because most folks don't have access or haven't had access to this kind of information for so long, yet we're curious. The human being, we're very curious, right? We want answers, especially when it comes to these taboo sort of subjects. And obviously that's not everybody, but I think it's a lot of people. And I think that people that want answers and that are curious about these kinds of things, where can they look? Over
Yeah.
the past few years, where have they been able to look? Well, they can't look into too many places. Whether it's, I don't think a lot of people are looking in physiology textbooks, right? I think the most accessible thing that you can do is go to pornhub.com or related websites, or you can go on a dating app that maybe isn't really there for dating. It's more like one night stands and such. Not to take away from that, because a lot of dating apps are very good for establishing meaningful relationships, but I think a lot of folks, especially the younger generations, are automatically driven to something like porn or dating apps when they want answers about sex or when they want to learn about sex. So why don't we have a conversation about this and maybe help bridge the gap between what young folks can do today to get their hands on this kinds of education?
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's been like this for so long. I sometimes think that sexuality must be the only thing in our society that hasn't actually evolved. We are more, we have more acceptance. There is more equality than there was in the past, But if you think of techniques and satisfaction, I'm not sure that it has moved forward that much since the ancient Greek. That I think actually had spent a lot of time developing practices and rituals around sexuality. So probably we have lost most of the knowledge that is truly connected to our beings. And I think one of the things that always comes back for me, we've designed a society that desensitizes us. We are surrounded by hard material. It doesn't smell very good in a city, so you don't connect with life when you are not feeling at home. And so partially the reason that we don't have access to this information is not just because of resources coming from the outside. We can't listen to our own body, so we don't get the information from inside, which is that wisdom that is inside our body. The body, I believe, is the most advanced technology we will ever have to deal with. I always think people are so excited about going to Mars, and we have this really amazing engine here that most people don't really explore throughout their life the way that they could, right? So me, that's been my discovery.
So I just want to, again, I know that you have these questions for me, and I know people tuning in now want me to answer the questions, but one last thing I want to say is I think that, for example, because porn is so accessible, and I know this is going to be an ongoing subject in our conversation, but because porn is so accessible to both men and women, when they have this urge, let's say, to have sex, they can immediately follow that up with masturbation. They can immediately get the satisfaction, right? And I think that takes away from the sexual tension that you need in a long-term relationship to keep things exciting, to keep things really fruitful, because if you expect in a relationship to immediately, the second that you are, let's say, horny, wanting sex, you want to fuck, if you expect the other person to respond immediately to give you that sense of satisfaction, then now you've cut off the one thing that is creating that awesome spice, So, so for those of you tuning in who watch porn or are interested in porn, please, look, I would also like to discuss with you the benefits, the potential benefits of porn, but I think most people use it in this fashion. And I will admit that as a young guy, in my early years, I also, approach sex in a similar fashion.
Mm.
Today, I'm very in touch with myself. I have all kinds of healthy habits and a very, very, very beautiful relationship with my partner where that allows us to enjoy each other, in a very special way. And I think a lot of people can get in touch with that. As we said earlier, it's something that is in our core, and it's a matter of discovering that, getting in touch with that, and allowing that spice to last and to only get better. So all right. So what are your
Mhm.
questions for me?
No, but I mean, most importantly, you mentioned that some of the things that you learned had a positive impact. And but I'm sure everyone else would love to know. I mean, of course, in respect of everything, what aspect, or and also what anything really that allowed you to address things slightly differently. Yeah, because when you mentioned there was things which really, well, I mean, I think the Kama content, but or other sources. I mean, by any means, I think it's important to bring it all in.
And I would say that, um, as far as, let's say, habits, things that I do that help me get in touch with this energy, that help me develop synchronicity with my partner, that help me explore my body and see the connection between, let's say, breath work and movement, and beyond. I would say that number one, because and this is something that I didn't really recognize until we started to have this conversation, but I think one of the best things that men can do is yoga. I think
Mhm.
yoga is an incredible way to introduce all of this stuff. Well, not all of it, but the vast majority of, let's say, these habits that can help men get in touch with themselves, that can help men explore movement, explore presence, explore breath work. And I'll tell you that it translates very well into the bedroom. And it's funny that I say that. And anyone tuning into this, I know, is going to laugh at me because my girlfriend is a yoga instructor, and I got into yoga through her. But I think it's been rewarding on so many levels personally, sex included,
Mm.
but so much more beyond that. Um, let's see what else. I mean, I as of right now, I'm not meditating, but I did have a very dedicated meditative
Mhm.
practice every morning. I think that's been fundamental. Everything that you've said about flow state really speaks to me because I think what all these habits have in common and bringing them together really helps develop this sense of flow, right? And I think that if we do give ourselves the opportunity to put society and those standards aside and get to know ourselves again through these habits, we can recognize maybe what's a career or what's a function, a role that we can play in society where we can be rewarded fairly by being ourselves. And I think that if
Mhm.
we put ourselves in that kind of position, automatically these habits are gonna be that much more essential and
Mm.
rewarding. Not essential as in they take away, but rather as in they will add so much in. And I think this develops a channel from which we can get to know ourselves and connect with other people on a much deeper level. So I know this is obviously a lot that we can unpack, but I think it's consistent with everything else that we've discussed. Do yoga, breath work, meditation. Try and find something that you love to do. Get to know
Yeah.
yourself,
Mhm.
and that will help you remove the expectations, get to your core, and develop this sort of intimacy.
Yeah, and
Before
also I think the mindset for anything, because me, I started to do yoga, but I didn't understand the philosophy of yoga. So I became competitive in there and hurt myself quite a lot. So the important thing about breath work, meditation, yoga, it's not about doing it isn't the point. The point of meditation is not to meditate. The point of meditation is to be present more often throughout your day. It's a practice that just helps you be present. So, my mindfulness practice, I call it effortless mindfulness. It actually isn't me who calls it, but it's someone I've learned from. And I love it because it's an everyday, every moment mindfulness practice. So, for example, while I'm talking to you, I'm sitting on the floor, of course, and I'm stretching
same
my
here.
leg, and I have awareness of my how my leg feels. I'm actually connecting with to the joint. Even though I'm talking to you, it doesn't distract me at all. I'm just bringing awareness to the present moment so that I stay in the flow, that I don't start thinking. By connecting with things that activate my senses, I actually tune in more to this moment of which you are part of. So I don't distract myself. Or if I drink, I really stop before I drink or eat. And I tell system. Now we're going to eat and drink, which activates, by the way, a whole lot of senses that are supposed to be activated, which is why we pray before we eat. That's why those rituals are there for. It indicates to the digestive system something is coming, rather than eating really fast, without warning, and then having, bad digestion and issues, with our body ultimately. So having all these little rituals that often actually existed a long time ago, that we have lost. This is how, together with a practice, so you'd have a practice that you can say, okay, I'm going to do 5 minutes of deep belly breathing every day. And you can invent any practice that you do every day. The only rule of the practice is that you have to do it. You cannot not do it. That's the only rule of the practice. Even if it's that you do one breath instead of 10, but you have to do the practice. That's how you master your mind. So that's the first thing, to know that you can do it, that you always have the choice to master yourself. It's always a choice you have.
So reflecting back on everything that we've discussed on this podcast, let's say, you've had these, you've been desensitized both mentally and physically, right? Now adding all these things back in, everything that we've just discussed, right? How do we last longer? Because it seems to me
Mhm.
like with everything that you've just taught me and taught the listeners, now sex is going to be such, oh my God, rich experience. How do you last longer with that kind of experience, with that kind of sensation?
So, as a guy with a penis, someone with a penis, you last longer because you feel more. The reason you don't last long enough is because you don't see the signs that happen in your body before they happen. So, when you master your own energy and you start feeling way before it gets to the point where you can't control it, you're going to feel things happening in your lower belly. You're going to start things, you're going to start reading the signs. So we use edging, which is the idea of delaying ejaculation, by feeling more, not by feeling less. Most people edge by stopping and thinking about something that totally turns them off. So that's how they stop coming too early. We actually teach, lasting longer by getting more in tune with your sensations. So that's the first thing. The second thing is semen
Mm.
retention. And the third thing is masturbation. Your masturbation is your training ground for the sex you want to have. So if you masturbate in 5 minutes in front of porn, this is likely to be very much the kind of experience you're going to recreate when you have sex. So use your masturbation to train yourself to last longer. Don't come. Just see, stretch the time, try new things, get yourself to those high states of arousal and maintain that. It's something that needs to be mastered, because it's mastery. The sexual practices in ancient wisdom were the ones that were delivered at the end of the training. That was 14 years. Only then, those practices, were able to be seen and learned, because they are so powerful. And the reason that sexuality has been so repressed, and especially, when it comes to female pleasure, it's because it liberates us. It connects us to our true self. It gives us a reason to know what we know, not to be distracted and influenced. It gives us a chance to, as you say, really meet ourselves, and from that place, manipulate it. We become a little bit more assertive with what we want, and we get driven by desires and not fears. And when that happens, this is true freedom that's available to us. So we can, as you say, leave society the way it is. We can't change everything, but do the work on yourself. You have access to this body. No one is taking it away, hopefully. And if it is, then that's, something that should be condemned. But in most cases, the people we're talking to, they have access to that body, and they don't have an excuse not to go explore now. It's going to be uneventful and very repetitive, right? So change things up, look on the app. We have lots of like masturbation technique that you can kind of try. And then, you know, use porn if it helps you think of something else than work. If you stress, use it. Be mindful of the content you watch. If you wouldn't want to be participating to this in real life, maybe you shouldn't be watching it. Just be careful, because it does feed you with a lot of, information. And the last thing I would say is maybe have a thing you want to work on. Like, it's the same as your fitness. Oh, I want to have sharper abs. Well, everyone seems to have a clear goal when it comes to what comes on the outside. So same thing with sex. What you want? So you want to last longer? Do you have a particular thing in mind? People work well when they have goals. As a coach, you know that, right? So it's the same thing. It can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna it's very hard for people to change their habit without goals. So it's like something maybe you can agree with your partner, say, okay, well, this she's frustrated because she can't have a G-spot orgasm. Okay, why don't we work on this together? I'll look it up, I'll stimulate you that way. She can do it on her own. So it's also like using it as a discovery project, and be have that attitude around masturbation is quite it's quite important, even though it's hard to sustain because we get distracted and it gets deprioritized. But be curious and try new things is what I would recommend.
Thank you, Chloe. I have 500 more questions for you, but I know that we're out of time at this point. But I would love to have you back on the podcast in a very near future if you'd be up for it.
Of course, of course. And I have so many questions for you, and I would love to maybe do some content. I think a lot of people would learn a lot and get, I think the best way to tell people what to do is to tell them what to do, to actually make it like, a series of little lessons of, what can we learn? And that's usually what we find people respond to the most anyway.
I would love to. Yeah, I would please. Yeah, let's do it. It'd be an honor and a pleasure. And hey, where can people find you?
So we on Instagram at kama.lab, and otherwise on the App Store and Google Play, you can download the Kama app, which is a sexual wellness application. And you can reach me at chloe.macintosh@kama.co for anything, honestly.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andres. So nice to talk to you.
Likewise.